clear to me, I'm not going to be able to do everything I wanted to do. But that is life, right? So maybe I think it's best if I just continue along with the Lamrim Chenmo explanation and see how far we can get, rather than cut this short and try to do something else also in kind of halfway. Yeah? So furthermore, it is said that the Bodhisattva's thoughts of suffering during their cultivation of compassion are more numerous than the Shravaka's thoughts, which perceive suffering with an attitude of disenchantment. The final and actual knowledge of the truth of suffering for the Shravakas. If you reflect from limitless viewpoints on how beings lack compassion and have suffering, you will develop much love and compassion. If you think about this for a long time, your love and compassion will be strong and steady. Therefore, if you are satisfied with just a little personal instruction and neglect to familiarize yourself with the explanations of the classical texts, your compassion and love will be very weak. Okay? So, as we were saying, these meditations, the contemplations on the suffering of samsara are very essential. And Sankalpa is saying here they're even more important for people who are entering or trying to enter into the Bodhisattva path. They're done with a lot more different lines of reasoning and different, more numerous than what is done for the people trying to develop mere the thought of renunciation from samsara. Moreover, after you have thoroughly distinguished the objects of meditation according to the previous explanations, how compassion is the root, how the development of the spirit of enlightenment is the entrance to the Mahayana, and so forth, you must then analyze these explanations with discerning wisdom and elicit the experience produced after sustaining them in meditation. You will not achieve anything with the unclear experiences that come when you make a short, concentrated effort without precisely clarifying the topic with your understanding. Know that this is true for other kinds of practice as well. Okay? So, you see, as we normally talk about, there's the three types of wisdom. The wisdom arising from hearing, the wisdom arising from contemplation, and the wisdom arising from meditation. Okay? So what we do here in the lecture time, we go through the classical texts and try to understand every word that's in the text. Okay? But we can't leave it just at that. We then go on and contemplate the meanings, and then we try to sustain them, as they say, right? Analyze these explanations with discerning wisdom, and then elicit the experience produced after sustaining them in meditation. Okay? So, yeah. Here also means reading, and then contemplating on the meaning, and then trying to actually elicit the experience in meditation. Kamalashila's first stages of meditation gives the measure for the development of compassion. When you spontaneously feel compassion, which has the subjective wish to completely eliminate the sufferings of all living beings, just like a mother's wish to remove her dear child's unhappiness, then your compassion is complete and is therefore called great compassion. Okay? So here Kamala Shila says that when you spontaneously feel compassion for all beings, commiserate with a mother's compassion for her very dear and small suffering child, then you have completely perfected great compassion. Through this, understand the measure for the development of great love as well. Okay? So this comes up, right? The measure of having great compassion, or the measure, right? Yeah. What that means is how do you know that you actually have the full-fledged realization? Okay. So here the point is, right, the spontaneous feeling of the compassion. So before we get to the spontaneous feeling, then we need to, with effort, try to elicit that feeling during our meditation sessions. Then the more we do it, then it'll become more natural, more forceful, more strong, and then it'll one day become a spontaneous arising. Taking that as a point of departure, Kamala Shila says, when you have committed yourself to being a guide for all living beings by conditioning yourself to great compassion, you effortlessly generate the spirit of enlightenment, which has the nature of aspiring to unexcelled perfect enlightenment. Here he says that great compassion, which is explained above, is a necessary cause for developing the spirit, a necessary cause for developing the aspirational spirit of enlightenment. Understand from this too the measure for the development of the spirit of enlightenment. Furthermore, this statement pertains not just to the spirit, the development of the spirit of enlightenment for someone who has reached a high path, but also to a beginner's initial generation of the spirit of enlightenment as well. There you go. Okay, so, okay, what does this all mean? Okay, basically he's saying, right, what does it mean to have a full-fledged realization of the spirit of enlightenment or bodhicitta? Okay, so just as compassion, you know, when you spontaneously feel compassion, which has these subjective aspects, okay, so it's this concept of spontaneity. Okay, so the same thing, if we try to meditate on compassion, first we do it with great effort, then eventually, after a long period of familiarization, it becomes a spontaneous arising in our mental continuum. In the same way, the development of bodhicitta will first be with effort, right? It arises, and then after a period of sustained contemplation and meditation, it will become spontaneous. Okay? Yeah. So, suppose that you are not anywhere near these objectives, and that you give rise to the mere thought, I will attain Buddhahood for the sake of all living beings, and in order to do this, I will cultivate this virtue. Okay? So that's what we do, I hope. We don't have spontaneous realization of bodhicitta, but at the beginning of our sessions, as I try to elicit in we think, I will attain Buddhahood for the sake of living beings, and in order to do this, I will cultivate this virtue, or when we come to the themes, I will then listen to this lecture, I will engage in this meditation, and so forth. Right? Okay. So Tsongkhapa says, you may make the great error of entertaining the false conceit that I have attained it with regard to something that you have not attained. Okay? So, although we might have that thought, that is what we call the Puram Tabu Semke, the sugarcane husks, right? It's like that. It's a semblance of the real bodhicitta, but it's not the real one. So if we mistakenly think that although we're able to arise this thought with effort, and it's similar to the real bodhicitta, and we think, oh, I've attained bodhicitta, I'm a bodhisattva, we have made the great error. Okay? If you then hold that the spirit of enlightenment is the core personal instruction, yet instead of training in it, you search for something else and work on that, then you are only making a claim to have passed through the many levels of attainment. If those who know the key points of the Mahayana see you doing this, they will ridicule you. Many books say that the excellent conqueror's children train in the spirit of enlightenment for many eons, holding it as their most important practice. So what need is there to mention that it could not be attained by those who have nothing more than a superficial understanding? This is not to say it is unsuitable to meditate on other paths, but it is to say that you must hold the training in the spirit of enlightenment as the core instruction and then sustain it in meditation. Yes? You guys understand? So I think this is a risk for us, right? Well, maybe not all of you, but certainly there's a tendency, as I was mentioning the other day, right? When we see the kind of the teachings being announced, right? Then there's all this buzz around, oh, like the Dalai Lama is giving this and this high initiation, right? And well, other places that I've been to, when there's a Lama who gives these, high tantric initiations, it's like standing room only, people are outdoors, a lot of interest. But the teachings on Lamrim, or these more foundational, basic teachings, well, few people come. So, there's the story of, Atisha. When he went to Tibet, then he heard of a practitioner back in India who had attained the state of stream entry, okay, through the practice of Hevajra. Okay, so just to give you some context, Hevajra is one of the so-called tantric Buddhas, tantric deities, right, which belongs to the class of High Sober Tantra. It's one of the most advanced systems of practice in the Vajrayana. Okay? Alright. And the attainment of stream entry is, well, one has a direct realization of emptiness, but one is on the Hinayana path. Okay? In other words, one has, just as bodhicitta, uncontrived bodhicitta is the door to the Mahayana, means when one has attained uncontrived bodhicitta, then one enters the Mahayana path of accumulation. Right? As we were saying yesterday, 5 paths. Nishita, what are the 5 paths? Mm. Preparation, seeing, meditation, no more learning. Okay? You have a nice notebook in front of you. Okay? So you understand? So again, you see, I don't know if you guys think like I'm just, I don't know, like trying to show off some book knowledge by saying these things. I don't know. But the point is, right, when you read these texts, these terminologies come up. Right? So this story about a teacher hearing someone training in the path of Hevajra and attaining the state of stream entry. Okay? Right. So if you don't know what that means, then the story doesn't have much significance to you. Okay? So I'm trying to not just be like, okay, here's all this vocabulary and we're going to quiz you on it later, right? But it's so that you can get the significance of the things that are in these quintessential texts. Okay? Anita?
What?
You
I'm sharpening my memory because I'm trying to. That's good for your brain.
Okay, great, great. Okay? So, stream enter, okay, is someone who has entered, not only entered the Hinayana path, and what I was saying is, the door to the Mahayana path is Bodhicitta. The door to the Hinayana path is the desire the uncontrived desire to attain liberation, for oneself alone. And there's two types of Hinayana paths, the Shravaka path and the Paidika Buddha. Okay? Alright. So the stream enter not only has entered the Hinayana path, but has also directly realized emptiness. So they are on which of the paths?
Path of seeing.
Path of seeing. At least. Okay? Okay? So,
It's quite high.
thank you. Quite high. Amazing. Right?
So he has switched from Hinayana onto the Mahayana path.
No. There is a Hinayana, path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, path of no more learning. Okay? So a stream enter necessarily is not on the Mahayana path. Okay? Okay? Alright. So, now, you hear this. Okay? So a teacher's in Tibet. He hears this news. Okay? Oh, Tisha, you're whatever it is, right? Whatever his name was.
Dipankara or something.
No. Subhashini, please. Please listen. Please listen. Okay? He heard this news about someone else. Atisha's name was Dipankara. Right? He's hearing this news about someone in India. So it's not Dipankara, it's someone in India who is not Atisha. Okay? You understand? He's hearing this news about someone else. His name is Ravi.
Through the tantric path, that's what
Yes.
it is.
Please listen. Please listen. Okay? So he hears, where's Atisha? He's in Tibet. He hears, hey, someone in India, Ravi, your friend who's back in India, he achieved the path of stream entry by practicing Hevajra. Okay? You understand?
It doesn't make sense.
No.
What?
It does. Go on. We'd like to listen. The essence.
No, because Hevajra is a tantric practice, right?
Yeah, but
It doesn't have
Bodhicitta
Bodhicitta motivation.
That's the point. Sorry. I'm not going to go ahead.
But isn't Vajrayana
Okay. Please. Okay. As I said yesterday, or maybe it's Friday, right? Lama Tsongkhapa says it's not enough that the teaching be Mahayana, but our motivation also has to be Mahayana, right? Okay? So, does the mere practice of Tantra, right, those tantric techniques, does it necessarily have to be conjoined with bodhicitta? No way. No way. Although you could, whatever. Any practice doesn't have to be conjoined with bodhicitta. Right? So this is the point. This person in India, he was practicing the Vajrayana, which in general is a Mahayana practice, but he didn't have bodhicitta. He had neglected that essential point of the practice. Right? And therefore, when a teacher hears, okay, this person practiced Hevajra and attained the state of stream entry, he knows that person didn't practice bodhicitta enough. Okay? Right? So it makes sense, it makes perfect sense, but the only conclusion you make is he didn't practice bodhicitta, the person in India. Okay? You see that? Okay. So what is Atisha's reaction? No, in general, right? If you hear someone has attained the path of stream entry, like, wow, amazing. But instead, Atisha says, oh, aka, as they say, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. He was very dismayed. He was very unhappy about it. Why? Because he knew that person hadn't been practicing bodhicitta. So what is the upshot? See, the point is this. If that same person had put in the necessary effort to meditate on bodhicitta and had attained it first, okay, then conjoined with bodhicitta, if you then get the realization of emptiness through practicing Hevajra, you will become enlightened, fully enlightened in that life. Guaranteed. You understand? You understand? So, I don't think you understand. It was like, see, the person had neglected the preliminary of meditating on bodhicitta. And he just kind of, as he was saying here, right? Just by, having some small effort in it, and then skipping to some more advanced practice, like the Vajrayana practice, right? So this person did that. Then he practiced Hevajra. He got the direct realization of emptiness, but because he hadn't attained the mind of enlightenment, the mind of bodhicitta before, then that realization of the direct realization of emptiness didn't, zoom him along the path to enlightenment in that lifetime. You understand?
So we skip the path of accumulation and preparation.
No. No. There's no skipping of the paths of preparation and accumulation.
We keep saying a double promotion. Go straight into seeing.
No. He did. Okay, it's like this. Okay? So remember, this is maybe 1,000 years ago. Okay? So there's no WhatsApp, right? There's no quick way to get information. Okay? So he's just, hearing this news that he's attained this state. Okay? So, you know, is this difficult to understand? He's just hearing this person attained this state. Okay? So it doesn't mean that nothing happened before that. Right? Right? Like, you know, you tell me your niece is graduating with her master's degree. And I say, oh, has she skipped kindergarten through her BA? Doesn't follow, right? You understand?
Yeah, but you said the guy was on the Hinayana path.
Yes.
Practiced Vajrayana
Yes.
and had a direct realization of emptiness.
Yes.
Which is the path of seeing.
Yes.
And that's why I asked the question. I'm not going to go to thoughts. Because, as you mentioned, the uncontrived bodhicitta in our mental continuum leads you to the path of accumulation.
Leads you to the Mahayana path of accumulation. So this person had not achieved the mind of bodhicitta. He had prior to realizing emptiness directly, and therefore achieving the path of seeing, the Hinayana path of seeing, first attained the Hinayana path of accumulation. Then he attained the Hinayana path of preparation. Then he attained the Hinayana path of seeing. Then someone heard about this, then went to Tibet, and then said to a teacher, oh, Ravi, whatever his name was, has attained the path of stream entry by practicing Hevajra. And then a teacher says, Aka. Okay? So, the story here...
In the Hinayana,
Yeah.
how do you enter the path of accumulation?
Renunciation, uncontrived
By
renunciation.
having the uncontrived mind of renunciation, wishing to be free from samsara. And therefore saying, and therefore I will attain, liberation. Okay?
Could you just repeat that, please? Uncontrived?
Renunciation. Or, right, the uncontrived wish to attain liberation for yourself alone. To make it very clear.
Even this is tough.
For everyone.
That's right.
Yes. You guys, okay, fine, yes, I appreciate that. But, you see, you read that, you've seen that story in the Lamrim, right? Yes? Okay? So if you don't know all that context, it doesn't then have the full significance, right? So that's actually why we study, okay? And then the upshot of that is, so again, let me be very explicit about this. Why is that? Where is that story in the Lamrim? Is to show the importance of bodhicitta, of great compassion, right? Where it is, how bodhicitta is the only sole gateway to the entrance of the Mahayana, right? Means if you have this, then and only then do your actions become the cause for enlightenment, right? Like, like Lama Tsongkhapa says in the three principal aspects of the path, even if you have attained merely the mind of renunciation, if you haven't developed bodhicitta, your actions do not become the cause for the unsurpassable bliss of enlightenment. Therefore, the wise cultivate the mind of enlightenment. Right?
What is uncontrived renunciation?
Yeah, Subhashini.
Okay. It's the spontaneous arising. I just, before I went into the story of Atisha, I just was talking about how Kamala Shila was talking about it in reference to compassion and bodhicitta, where first we have the contrived version, we meditate on it, but it doesn't come spontaneous. Then through repeated familiarization, it becomes spontaneous. Yes? So that's what that means. Okay? So it's the same thing with any other realization. The first time, you don't have a spontaneous version of it, so you have to bring it up, induce it with great effort. Then through repeated familiarization, it becomes spontaneous. Spontaneous, uncontrived. Yeah?
Therefore, reaction and aggression.
Choe Maimba, yeah. Okay. Alright. So there are those who, even without having gained the experiences as explained above, okay, the experiences of uncontrived bodhicitta, know about the Mahayana trainings and have firm conviction in the Mahayana. Okay? So I hope that is some of us. They first develop the spirit of enlightenment and take the vow through the ritual, and then train in the spirit of enlightenment. For instance, in the Bodhisattvacharyāvatāra, first there is the description of adopting the spirit of enlightenment and taking the vow, and then a detailed explanation on how to practice the spirit of enlightenment in the context of meditative stabilization. Okay? So, this is what I was planning to do this weekend. However, okay, so basically what that means is, right, as we alluded to in this text, the first chapter, it talks about the benefits. Well, first the need to make best use of our precious human rebirth, and then talks about the benefits of bodhicitta. And then from the second chapter, there is a ritual, or a way to adopt the vows of bodhicitta. Okay? Then it talks about the trainings that lead to the attainment of enlightenment. Okay? But then, in the context of meditative stabilization, which is chapter 8, right? Which is the fifth of the 6 paramitas, right? So in chapter 2 is where the ritual to adopt bodhicitta is. Then, only in chapter 8 does Shantideva revisit, right, how to develop bodhicitta through the equalizing and exchanging self for others. Okay? However, even in order to establish yourself as a proper recipient for these practices, you must first train in many kinds of earlier attitudes. After you've trained your mind by thinking of the benefits of bodhicitta, by practicing the 7 branches of worship, going for refuge, and after you have come to understand the trainings, you develop the desire to maintain the spirit of enlightenment. Some say rightly, though merely uttering the words, that in order to progress on the path, you must go on increasing your knowledge of emptiness. In order to progress on the path, you must likewise first sustain the spirit of enlightenment in meditation, and then increase it in an ever more special way the higher you go. But those persons do not even merely utter these words. This is the one-way travel by all the conquerors, the 22 kinds of the spirit of enlightenment taught in the ornament of clear knowledge. Understanding this from the great trailblazers' explanations concerning how to progress along the path by means of the 2, the spirit of enlightenment and the knowledge of emptiness. Okay, so basically, what this means, right? Along the path, we have the 2 aspects, the method side and the wisdom side. Okay? The method side is, in the context of Mahayana, great compassion, bodhicitta, and so forth. Okay? The wisdom side is the wisdom realizing emptiness. Okay? So in the Hinayana context as well, there's also method and wisdom. Their method is the thought of renunciation, right? Or the thought to be free from samsara and attain liberation for oneself alone. Okay? Right? So now, what this last paragraph is talking about, in the Abhisamaya Alamkara, the ornament of clear knowledge, okay, there's actually 22 kinds of spirit of enlightenment discussed. And they're kind of sa, ser, like earth-like bodhicitta, gold-like bodhicitta, and so forth. Moon-like bodhicitta, fire-like bodhicitta. Anyway, there's all these like analogies, okay? And so those bodhicittas, okay, they're all the same in terms of their method aspect. They all are the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. But the wisdom aspect is different according to those different levels, right? And therefore, they're distinguished in accordance to the wisdom realizing emptiness that conjoins with them. Okay? Right. Okay, so next is the cultivation of wholehearted resolve. At the conclusion of meditating on loving compassion, think, alas, these dear living beings for whom I feel affection are deprived of happiness and tormented by suffering. How can I provide them with happiness and free them from suffering? Thinking in this way, train your mind in at least this thought in order to take on the responsibility to liberate living beings. Even though this thought was described in the context of the practice of repaying your mother's kindness, here it indicates that it is insufficient to have compassion and love which merely think how nice it would be if they had happiness and were free from suffering. For the thought that assumes responsibility shows that you must develop the compassion and love which have the power to induce the resolve, I will provide happiness and benefit to all living beings. It is very effective if you practice this continually, being mindful of it in all your physical activities during the period of post-meditation and so on, not just the meditation session. Okay, you understand? So here again, we're now on the 6th of the 7 steps to bodhicitta, right? The wholehearted resolve. where again it's distinguishing between the mother-like compassion and the father-like compassion. Right? So this is the one that says, I take responsibility. I will provide happiness and benefit to sentient beings. So here, compassion is just one example. You must do the same when sustaining any meditation. The great master Chandra Gomin states, since beginningless time, the tree of the mind has been moistened with the bitter juice of the afflictions, and you are unable to sweeten its taste. How could a drop of good water, of the water of good qualities affect it? Thus he says, for example, you cannot sweeten the very bitter and large trunk of a tigla tree by pouring just one drop of sugar cane juice onto it. Similarly, the mind stream which has been infused since beginningless time with the bitter afflictions will not change at all from just a short cultivation of the good qualities of love, compassion, and so forth. Therefore, you must sustain your meditation continuously. Okay? You understand? So again, yes, these full-fledged realizations only will come with sustained meditation with a long period of time. And here the advice is not just to have this sustained while we're on a meditation cushion, but throughout the rest of the day, try to bring these thoughts to mind again and again. So Lamzo Rinpoche is very fond of talking about the break time meditations. So here in the context of the development of bodhicitta, some things one could do is as you go out into the world, then everyone you see, humans as well as animals, dogs, mosquitoes even, you can think, oh, this person has been my mother countless times and has showered me with tremendous kindness. Okay? One example. Two, you can think, I am going to, attain enlightenment for the benefit of this being. Right? Yeah. So, many ways to do. Well, this comes up especially when we talk about equalizing and exchanging self for others. But you can think that, this sentient being is the source of all of my past, present, and future happiness. Right? So, again, then it becomes very real, by having an actual object of this kind of thought, rather than just thinking, I'll attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Right? So next, training the mind to be intent on enlightenment. Once you have been inspired by the aforementioned process and have seen that you need enlightenment for the sake of others' welfare, you develop a wish to attain it. However, this is not enough. First, increase your faith as much as possible by contemplating the good qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, and enlightened activities, as previously explained in the section on going for refuge. Then, as it is taught that faith is the basis of aspiration, develop the desire to attain those good qualities from the depths of your heart, and induce a certainty that is absolutely necessary, that it is absolutely necessary to attain omniscience, even for your own welfare. Right? So, just so you guys understand, right? There's a few things that go on, right? You need to understand, one, like why you need to become enlightened, okay? And that is primarily the trainings in the two, the great compassion, and then also the training in the understanding the good qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. Okay? Yes. Then there's also the realization of why enlightenment is possible, or why it is a feasible goal to have, right? And this, we didn't talk about it this weekend, but we've talked about it other times. This is the teachings on Buddha nature, right? Buddha nature means the potential that all sentient beings have to attain enlightenment. And basically, it comes down to the fact that since the obscurations in the mind are not intrinsically part of the mind, one, and two, the primary obstacles stem from a mistaken view of how ourselves and other phenomena exist, which has a direct antidote, the mind that correctly perceives the nature of reality. Understand? So therefore, that incorrect grasping onto the mistaken view is able to be abandoned. Okay? So then, in reflecting in that way, one then sees that enlightenment is possible. So as we've talked about in other contexts, right, the sharp faculty disciples or trainees would first develop great compassion, this last step we just talked about, the wholehearted resolve, I will free all sentient beings from their suffering. They then hear about the qualities of the Buddha. But before they then think, okay, then I will attain enlightenment, they'll say, wait a minute, is enlightenment possible? I hear what you're saying about the qualities of Buddha, but is that real? Is that a goal that I can attain? Right? And then they analyze, and they analyze the nature of reality. They realize emptiness, or shunyata. Then, by doing that, they then see the possibility of enlightenment, and then they kind of sign up for it and say, therefore, I will attain enlightenment. Whereas the trainees of lower faculties, of course, some of them will realize enlightenment, bodhicitta, before realizing the nature of reality. But some of them will just by hearing their gurus talk about the good qualities of Buddha, just accept their word for it, and then taking their guru's word for it, they will then generate bodhicitta. Understand? So last here, identifying the spirit of enlightenment, the fruit of the training. In general, the spirit of enlightenment follows the meaning of that given in the ornament of clear realization. The development of the spirit of enlightenment is the desire for perfect enlightenment for others' welfare. With respect to its subdivisions, Bodhisattvacharyāvatāra follows the array of stock sutra and says that it is both aspirational and engaged. Just as one distinguishes between wishing to go and going, similarly the learned should understand the division of these two in accordance with this sequence. Okay? This we talked about yesterday, yeah. Although there are many disagreements about what these two are, know that the aspiration is either, may I become a Buddha, or I will become a Buddha for the sake of all beings, and that as long as you have not taken the Bodhisattva vows, it is the aspirational spirit that is present. Whether or not you are training in the deeds of generosity. once you have taken the vows, the spirit present is the engaged spirit of enlightenment. Right? The first stages of meditation states. The aspirational spirit of enlightenment is the initial intent, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all beings. The engaged spirit is present once you have taken the vows and engaged in accumulating the collections of merit and sublime wisdom. There are many arguments over this, but I will not elaborate on them here. Okay. Okay, so this is 7-point cause and effect instructions. I did also want to go through equalizing and exchanging self for others, but we have 12 minutes. So we can do that another time. Right? Okay. So are there any questions at this point? Okay, well, great. So why don't, let me maybe just say this. So a few days ago, I mentioned the possibility that I might not be back here until April of 2019, which is like a countless eon away. But it seems that, well, the schedule has opened up a bit. No, well, don't thank me yet. I said the schedule has opened up a bit at the center. But I'll still have to consider whether it's, whether it's best for me to come again in December. There's a possibility. If that happens, we can continue with this. And I did want to take the ritual for the adoption of the Bodhisattva vows, but we don't have time for that. So if there are no questions, oh yeah.
It's not a question. I just want to ask you to come back in December and to teach us on exchanging self and others and probably to take Bodhisattva.
Okay, I'll do it. There is no question. She requested me to come back in December. So very good, Sveta, actually. Very good. You have to do that. So I was on the fence, but that pushed me over the fence. Yes?
You talked about the 22 types of Bodhicitta, and so there you said that the method part is the same, but only the level of realization of emptiness varies across those 22. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically. Okay, well, what they refer to, right? So it's like, it'll be like, the first one, and I'll have to review this, but the first one is earth-like bodhicitta. Okay, so and that refers to the bodhicitta in the continuum of someone on the small path of accumulation.
Is destined. One who is just entered.
Yes. Then the next one is Ser, gold. So then these analogies, right? Just like the earth is the foundation of everything that grows on it, the bodhicitta at the very beginning of the path serves as the foundation for everything. On the middle path of accumulation, it's the gold-like bodhicitta. So, just like gold cannot be, kind of corrupted or like, corroded, okay? This refers to the bodhicitta on the middle path of accumulation. Once one attains the middle path of accumulation, one can no longer fall from the Mahayana. So therefore it's like gold, okay? So then each of these, is referring to, and I think maybe the last three are analogies for the bodhicitta and the mind of a Buddha, okay? But in any case, since they're referring to the bodhicitta in the various, levels in bodhisattvas, those levels of bodhisattvas are primarily determined by the realization, the realization of emptiness, basically, right? Yeah, that's how. Yeah.
As in from conceptual understanding, conceptual realization to the...
Yes. And then later, when one has direct realization of emptiness, see, even that direct realization of emptiness is the same from the first to the 10th ground, but what is different is the ability of that direct realization, like what objects of abandonment does it have the power to abandon? Anyway, that's getting, a whole other topic.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes?
Yes. When you talked about equalizing self for others, when Namjong used to do the meditations, he used to say those three categories are interchangeable. The stranger can become the friend, and the enemy can become the friend, and the friend can become an enemy. So, they're fluid categories. So, how does Bodhicitta come into this?
I think you mean when I was talking about equanimity, right? That's when I was mentioning this. So the point is, equanimity is this even-mindedness. What we have now is a strong identification of the friend, and toward the friend, or the relative, whoever, we have very strong concern in their well-being. The enemy, we don't, and in fact can be happy when they suffer. And then the kind of stranger we have complete indifference to. Okay? So as long as we have these strong identification and categories, friend, enemy, stranger, then when we try to develop compassion, right, we will have a unbalanced, biased, uneven sense of it. And so this contemplation, which not only Geshe Namjong mentioned, but I myself mentioned this weekend, is that the impermanent nature of our relationships, that they're all in flux, and since beginningless lifetimes, then we've all been each other's, friend. Every relationship under the sun we've had with each other, and therefore what to relay from its own side identify as friend, enemy, stranger. Right? So that's one way of loosening the strong identification of these categories, so we can develop an even-mindedness. Then from that even-mindedness, we would do either of the two methods to generate bodhicitta, the 7-point cause and effect instructions, or equalizing and exchanging self for others.
Just to reiterate or just take her point, what is your advice on when you do the 4 immersions? I personally think it should be the reverse, which is most effective.
What reverse?
I would say using first have a equanimous mind. That helps. That is for me the most. And then only then I can see. Otherwise, if I take the other way around, it's like I can get involved emotionally. I need to be detached to be able to actually generate that. I think for me, if I use equanimity as a basis, only then can I be detached and be
I think
and take
the
it
second one was
love, compassion, and all this stuff. But otherwise, if it's the other way, then there'll always be some kind of a contamination, irrespective of how much I try. There'll be an emotional commitment.
I think you
It's
said
my
the
personal-
second
Okay.
equanimity comes first.
It's my personal.
Thank you for listening. Okay.
What do you think?
So a couple things, okay? Actually many things. First of all, okay, we need to distinguish between this equanimity that is used as a prelude to the development of bodhicitta, right, which is developing this even-mindedness. Then in the 4 immeasurable thoughts, that equanimity is wishing that all sentient beings have that type, the first type of equanimity. Okay? Understand? So, when, of course, even if you're doing the immeasurable love, right, you would do the 3 beings, friend, enemy, stranger, and before you can really meditate on love for them, you would do the equanimity in the sense of even-mindedness toward the 3.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I was.
Right? Yeah. So, if you do that, then it really doesn't matter of the 4 immeasurables which you do first, right? You understand? There's 2 types of equanimity, right? The equanimity is you seeing friend, enemy, stranger and leveling the playing field. And the other is the immeasurable equanimity that then wishes that all sentient beings have the even-mindedness, you know, like whoever, right? You know, this person, may they also have equanimity to friend, enemy, stranger. And you're wishing that for all sentient beings. Yeah, right? So, you know, the first time, the first one you cultivate, you know, before you do this. That's good. But I wanted to say, when you use the word detached, I don't like that word. It's not detached. It's like lack of attachment, lack of aversion. Okay, I mean, being a bit technical, but usually in my mind, when I think detached, it's like not caring. Right? So here it's just, we care, but we care in a balanced way towards all. Okay? Does that answer your question? Okay. Okay? Bus? Alright. So...
One more question.
Okay?
Even in the second chapter of the Gita, what comes out is that when Krishna advises Arjuna, he says, the most important thing is to be a sthita prajna, which means you have to have equanimity, which is the first prerequisite to move on the spiritual path. Of course, the dialogue doesn't take place, it takes place in the scene of war, but he's conveying the importance of equanimity, because Arjuna says, I cannot fight with these cousins of mine. I've grown up with them.
They were on the wrong path.
Sorry?
Okay.
Fights with them.
No. What I'm saying is that it's
Okay.
Krishna who says that you have to look at the context and have that equanimity to take that step.
Thank you. Yes,
I gave
Ashana.
you a small copy of the Gita. Did you read it?
Yeah, yesterday you mentioned about this meditation on equanimity to be done along with the preliminary practices. And we talked about cleaning
Okay.
the room and all. So all these meditations, they can be, I was thinking that they can be done at any point of time as long as you sort of visualize a refuge field and Bodhicitta field, and do them at any point in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, if you're on the bus to work, right, you don't have to do like, you know, sweep the bus and like put water bowls on like the front thing, right? So remember, okay, we have our seated formal practice, right, which we do in the comfort of our own, you know, home, or we come to the center and do, right? But what Tsongkhapa was talking also here is we sustain that even in the like the session break times, right? And for that, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be always, you know, prefaced by refuge or the settling prayer or anything like this, right? Even that one thought, like, oh, you know, this being has been my mother countless times and showered me in kindness. You know, we can just have that brought to the surface of our mind again and again and again, as an example, right? Okay, so Anita. So why don't we do this? We'll end here. But why don't we read the full dedication chapter of Bodhisattvacharyāvatāra. Chapter 10 is on page 158 in the book. Do we have time?
Yeah.
Through the virtue of having composed this work, A Guide to a Bodhisattva's Way of Life, may all living beings come to engage in a Bodhisattva's conduct. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. For as long as they remain in cycle of existence, may them mundane happiness never decline, and may all of them uninterruptedly receive waves of joy from Bodhisattvas. May all embodied creatures who throughout the universe experience hellish realms come to enjoy the bliss of Sukhavati. May those feeble with cold find warmth. May those oppressed with heat be cooled by the boundless waters that pour forth from the great clouds of the Bodhisattva's merits. May the forest of razor-sharp leaves become a beautiful pleasure grove, and may trees of knives and swords grow into worship-filled trees. May the regions of hell become places of joy, with vast and fragrant lotus pools, beautiful with exquisite calls of wild ducks, geese, and swans. May the heaps of burning coals change into heaps of jewels. May the burning ground be a polished crystal floor. And may the mounts of the crushing hells become celestial palaces of worship filled with sugatas. May the rains of lava, blazing stones, and weapons from now on become a rain of flowers. And may all battling with weapons from now on become a playful exchange of flowers. May the force of my virtues, may those caught in fiery torrents of acid, their flesh eaten away, divinity with their bones, obtain the bodies of celestials, and dwell with goddesses in gently flowing rivers. Why are the henchmen of Yama, the unbearable buzzards and vultures afraid? Through whose noble strength is joy brought upon us and darkness dispelled? Looking up, they behold in the firmament the radiant form of Vajrapani. Through the force of their joy may they be free from wrongdoing and find his company. When they see the lava fires of hell extinguished by a rain of fallen flowers mixed with scented water, immediately satisfied, they wonder whose work this was. In this way, may those in hell behold Padmapani. Friends, don't be afraid, but quickly gather here. What need is there to flee when above us is the youthful Manjugosha to dispel our fears? Lieutenant Bodhisattva protects all living things, through whose might all suffering is removed and the force of joy abounds. Behold him in an enchanting palace resounding with hymns sung by 1,000 goddesses, with tiaras of 100 gods being offered to his lotus feet, and may a rain of flowers falling on his head, the eyes of which are moist with kindness. Upon seeing Manjugosha in this way, may those in hell cry out loud with joy. Thus, likewise, having seen, due to my wholesome deeds, the cool and sweet-smelling rain falling from joyful clouds, created by the Bodhisattvas, Samantabhadra, and Sava Nibbana Vishkambini, may all beings in hell be truly happy. May all animals be free from the fear of being eaten by one another. May the hungry ghosts be as happy as the people of the northern continent. May they be satisfied by a stream of milk born from the hand of the noble Lord Avalokiteshvara, and by bathing in it, may it always be cool. May the blind see forms and deaf hear sounds, just as it was with Maya Devi. May pregnant women give birth without any pain. May the naked find clothing, hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find love, those weak of sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find new hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May all who are sick and ill clearly be freed from their illnesses, and may every disease in the world never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting one another. May all travelers find happiness everywhere they go, and without any effort may they accomplish whatever they set out to do. May those who sail in ships and boats obtain whatever they wish for, and having safely returned to the shore, may they joyfully reunite with their relatives. May troubled wanderers who have lost their way meet with fellow travelers without any fear of thieves and tigers. May their going be easy without any fatigue. May those who find themselves in trackless, fearful wildernesses, the children, the aged, the unprotected, those stupefied and the insane, be guarded by beneficent celestials, and beings be freed from all states of known leisure, and be endowed with faith, wisdom, and kindness, with food obtained in a proper manner and excellent conduct. May they be mindful throughout their lives. May all beings be without want for wealth, just like the treasures of space, and without it being the source of dispute or harm. May they always enjoy it as they wish. May those who have little splendor come to be endowed with majesty, and may those whose bodies are warm with toil find magnificent and noble forms. May all lower life forms in the universe take rebirth into higher forms. May the lowly atone grandeur, and may the proud be humbled. By the merits I have accumulated, every single being abandon all forms of wrongdoing and perpetually engage in virtue. May they never be parted from the awakening mind, and may they always engage in Bodhisattva's conduct, May they be cared for by the Buddhas and relinquish the actions of devils. May sentient beings have lives inconceivably long when in fortunate realms. May they always live in contentment, unfamiliar with even the word death. May they abound in all directions, gardens of wish-fulfilling trees, filled with the sweet sound of Dharma, proclaimed by the Buddhas and their children. And may the land of everywhere be pure, smooth and devoid of any rocks, level like the palm of the hand, and nature of the lapis lazuli. For all the circles of disciples, may many bodhisattvas dwell in every land, adorning them with their excellent manifestations. May all embodied creatures uninterruptedly hear the sound of Dharma issuing from birds and trees, beams of light, and even space itself. May they always meet with the Buddhas and their children and the bodhisattvas. Then may these spiritual masters of the world be worshipped with endless clouds of offerings. May celestial beings bring timely rain so that harvests may be bountiful. May kings act in accordance with the Dharma. May the people of the world always prosper. May all medicines be effective, and the repeating of mantras successful. May Vatican, cannibals, and the like be endowed with compassionate minds. May no living creature ever suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid of the devils, or their minds ever be depressed. In all temples and monasteries, may reading and recitation flourish and remain. May the Sangha always be in harmony, and the purposes be accomplished. May monks desiring peace to practice and find quiet and solitary places, and through having abandoned all wandering thoughts, may they meditate with flexible minds. May nuns be materially sufficient, preventing quarreling and being harm. Similarly, may all adorned ones never let their morality weaken. Having repented any moral falls, may transgression always be eradicated, and thereby obtaining a happy state of rebirth. May spiritual conduct not decline even there. May the wise be honored, and may they receive alms. May the minds be completely pure, and may they be endowed in all directions. May beings not experience the misery of lower realms. May they not know hardships, with the physical form superior to the gods. May they swiftly attain Buddhahood. May sentient beings again and again make offerings to all the Buddhas, and may they constantly be joyful in the conceivable bliss of the Buddhas. They intended, may Bodhisattvas fulfill the welfare of the world, and may all sentient beings receive whatever the Buddhas have intended for them. Similarly, may public Buddhas and Shravakas find happiness. And until I reach the level of the joyous one, through the kindness of Manjosha, may I be mindful throughout my lives, and always obtain ordination. May I live and be sustained by simple common foods, and in all my lives may I find the ideal solitude for practicing Dharma. Whenever I wish to see something, or even wish to ask the slightest question, may I behold without any hindrance the Lord Manjugosha himself. In order to fulfill the needs of beings who reach onto the end of space, may my way of life be just like that of Manjugosha. For as long as space endures, and for long as living beings remain, until then may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world. May all the pains of living creatures reckon solely upon myself, and through the might of the Bodhisattva Sangha, may all beings experience happiness. May the teachings, which are the sole medicine for suffering and the origin of every joy, be materially supported and honored and abide for a long time. I prostrate to Manjugosha, through whose kindness wholesome minds ensue, and I prostrate to my spiritual masters, through whose kindness I develop. So very beautiful. So let's also dedicate for of course, the long lives of the spiritual friends, particularly the Holiness the Dalai Lama, Lamas of Rinpoche, and may all of their holy wishes be fulfilled. Then we can also dedicate for, the pacification of all natural disasters. All the, there's the forest fires, in California, all the various, hurricanes, earthquakes, all of the kind of natural disasters coming from the harm from the elements. May those be immediately pacified and never occur again. And similarly, may there be no drought or famine, no war, terrorist attacks, any undesirable thing in this or any of the world systems in the 10 directions from now until the end of samsara. And then we can also seal with the realization or the understanding of emptiness. So think that due to the merit which exists, being merely labeled by the mind, accumulated over the past, present, and future by myself and all the Buddhas and other holy and ordinary beings, may the I, who exists being merely labeled by the mind, quickly attain the state of Buddha's enlightenment, which merely exists, merely labeled by the mind, and thereby may lead all sinning beings who are merely labeled by the mind to that state as quickly as possible, and by myself alone, which is merely labeled by the mind. Okay.